I'm Betty Ann Kroger. I'm the coordinator for discipleship for the Cathedral. And this is my daughter, Danielle, who is visiting and quarantining with me from Nashville. And we're going to share with you today some thoughts about Holy Week and the important days that we have ahead of us this week, which is such a very important and special week. First of all, the days of Holy Thursday and Good Friday and Easter Saturday into Easter Sunday are referred to as the Triduum. Triduum, it means, I think it's Latin for 3 days. And they're the 3 most important days of the whole church year. I read once where the Triduum is to the church year what Sunday is to our week. Okay, so Holy Thursday, of course, is the first of the 3 days. And what I remember most about Holy Thursday is the washing of the feet. That's probably what we all remember mostly about it. The background to that is that during the time of Jesus, everybody wore sandals, the streets were dirty, they were dirt, actually. And so whenever someone would arrive to a house, the servant of the house would come out and wash the feet of the visitor. So, as we read in the Gospel from Holy Thursday Mass, when Jesus goes to wash the feet of his apostles, they knew immediately what he was saying. He was saying, I, who am your master, am acting as your servant. You want to be like me? This is what you have to do. Right?
This is how you love each other. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the other big thing that I always think of with Holy Thursday is the institution of the priesthood and the fact that Jesus gave us communion, gave us Eucharist essentially at the Last Supper, which is in the second reading.
The institution of the Eucharist.
The institution of the Eucharist, right. And so we of course go through the rest of Mass and have the Eucharistic prayer and consecration and Eucharist and all of that, but then communion.
Of course.
But then at the end of Mass, the rest of the Eucharist that we'll end up using on Good Friday, is kind of wrapped up by the priest and is processed around the church by the priest, and we all get out of the pews and follow him around. And so different churches do that different ways. Sometimes they take it out of the church or to a different altar or something. But you can always look at the sanctuary in the church at the end of that and know that something is different. Something's going to be different tomorrow. The tabernacle is empty and open, and sometimes you can see all the way through it or you can see into it. The altar is stripped at that point. And so you know when you're leaving something's going to be different tomorrow. And that's the end of Mass. There isn't a closing song. There isn't a closing blessing. It doesn't technically end. It just is going to continue into Good Friday. So that's what I always... think of.
It's the Eucharist is taken to a completely different space normally, and it's set up in what is called the altar of repose. And it's just such a beautiful time. There's just a sense of mystery, and like you said, it's going to be different now.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. So, with that being said about the normal way we celebrate Holy Thursday, what does that say to us about how we live it today?
I think the best way that we can enter into that from our homes, from where we are, is by taking the service piece. That Jesus showed us how to love like him, how it has to look like if we're loving like him and living like him. And that can be just with the people that we're with in our immediate house and just being more intentional about loving them and serving them well. Or other people that are close to us in our life that we're not physically with, but that we can get on FaceTime with, or we can send a card to, or we can, reach out, and if there is some way that we can serve them from a distance, great, but I think like the best way we can serve and love each other right now is just a phone call or a text or reaching out and having some kind of connection. Whereas we can probably serve the people in our own homes a little bit more tangibly and, purposefully, but that's, I think, the best way that we can really enter into that liturgy and the meaning of it while we're home and not able to be in church.
Yeah. One thing that actually comes to mind as you're talking is the very fact that social distancing itself is serving the world.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah.
By staying away from other people, we're helping this virus.
That's a very good point.
To stop. Okay, so then we move to Good Friday. And Good Friday service is usually around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a very somber, solemn service. It's the only day that we cannot actually consecrate the Eucharist. We can't have a regular Mass that day, which is why we use the Eucharist that was consecrated the night before at Holy Thursday. Things are different when you walk in because there's nothing on the altar. There's no candles. The priests walk in silence. They lay flat down. They prostrate themselves before the altar for an extended period of time in the beginning. And it always feels very dry to me, very solemn.
Solemn and also powerful.
Yes.
Because we go to Mass all the time.
Right.
No other Mass starts this way.
Right.
No other Mass starts without a big procession and all the music and all the things. And something about the visual of the priests laying down in front of the altar is so powerful every single year.
Yeah.
In front of the altar with an empty tabernacle. It's just, it sets the stage so much for what we're about to enter into.
Right. And technically it isn't a Mass, so of course it's not going to be like anything else.
True.
And the thing that I always remember from the Good Friday service is mostly the reading of the Passion from John's Gospel. We have just read the Passion for Palm Sunday, of course, but it's a different Passion each year. It alternates between Mark, Matthew, and Luke, but John is always on Good Friday. And then there's other elements. We bring in a cross and we venerate the cross. We honor it. We either kiss it or kneel down before it, genuflect before it, or something like that. And there's all these intercessions, prayers for all the different parts of the world, and for the whole church and for the Pope and all that. And then we do get to receive communion. But at the end, priests leave in silence, and it's just, as you said, it feels completely different than anything else we celebrate. So what are ways that in this day that you think we can kind of keep the spirit of Good Friday?
I mean, I think, like I said before, it's going to look different. It looks different than any other day for us, and it should. And I think the fact that the church doesn't consecrate Eucharist on this day speaks to how different and powerful and solemn of a day it is. And so I think in our own homes, in our own lives, we can be solemn, quiet, silent. We can strip away distractions and news and social media and even just like silly conversations with friends that aren't or people in our house that aren't necessary. The thing that I always remember growing up in a house with two parish ministers is that the day looked different. We didn't have TV on all day. We went to church at 12 o'clock and at 3 o'clock because that's how our parish did it. But we honored and kind of went along with the timeline of that day. We were very much living in the reality of what was going on. And so even if that's just stripping away distractions and making the day for us look different in some way, quiet, solemn, and really entering into even just private reflection about what the death of Jesus looks like for our lives and how that affects us, I think is the best way we can enter into that.
Right. That death, of course, being the ultimate gift of love.
Right.
And sacrifice. Yep.
And we're not really fully able to celebrate Easter Sunday and the resurrection if we don't embrace and look at and walk into the death on Good Friday.
Right.
Because Sunday can't happen without Friday happening.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Okay, and finally we come to the ultimate climax of this week, which is Holy Saturday. And Holy Saturday is a liturgy that usually begins after the sun has set, so it has to start in darkness. And oftentimes it starts outside. The first part of the liturgy is the blessing of the new fire. And then after the fire is lit, the new Paschal candle is prepared and lit. And from that, we all get lit candles and we go into the church. And the Exultet is sung, which is the Easter proclamation. And then the second part is the liturgy of the Word, where all of salvation history is recounted, basically from creation through Abraham, through Moses, through the prophets, including up to St. Paul, and then, of course, the Gospel, which talks about Easter, the resurrection of Jesus. We turn the lights on bright, we sing the Gloria before the Gospel, we have the homily, and then after that we have the baptismal rite, where the water is blessed, and those who are to be baptized are baptized, those who have, prepared for months sometimes, and so they're baptized, and then we move to the fourth part, which is the liturgy of the Eucharist, and we have, we all get to participate in the central part of this entire celebration, which is Eucharist, of course. And so we celebrate Easter. We celebrate Christ being risen from the dead, and new life coming about once again. And it's such a gorgeous liturgy. And if I haven't said this already in this recording, talking about these liturgies just breaks my heart, because I love to be a part of them. But it also makes me happy because I know that it's such a central part of who we are. What do you think about when we talk about Easter Vigil?
I think my favorite part of the Easter Vigil is when we're in darkness and one person lights a candle, and then it lights somebody else's candle and somebody else's candle, and slowly light just comes in the dark among our lights and our candles. It's just this beautiful illustration of the church starting, of how we love each other, all kinds of things. But it's this beautiful visual. And then ringing the bells when the Gloria is on. It's just like the climax of the whole season. I love that. So I think the way that we can really enter into the liturgy and into the whole spirit of Holy Saturday is, a few years ago I saw a article by Father James Martin, and it talked about how the apostles were waiting on Holy Saturday, and they had just experienced all of this life with Jesus, and they just watched him die and be put in the tomb, and they were just waiting. They were just quiet and didn't know what was going to happen next, and didn't know that he was going to rise the next day. And so what he was saying was that we can, on Holy Saturday, really unite ourselves to that sense of waiting with them. But the difference is that we know the end of the story. We know that Jesus rises from the dead. We know that there was victory and is always going to be victory, because he always is victorious. And so in both senses, in both ways, I think we can all appreciate and resonate with waiting and being in a time of not knowing what's going to happen next, and not knowing how long this time is going to last.
So true.
And but at the same time, we still know that Jesus always wins. We still know that he's always victorious. And so this particular time of illness and pandemic and all of this stuff isn't going to be over on Easter Sunday. It's not going to be over the next day. But we can remember that we still are an Easter people. We still do know that he walked out of the grave and that he conquered everything. And so we still can wait with hope that Jesus has it all in the end, and we will be okay. So I think that, for me, is the piece that I'm going to be really praying into on Holy Saturday, is waiting but doing it with hope.
And with that, knowing that we're not alone. Knowing that whether we are literally quarantining with someone or whether we're physically alone in our house, but spiritually, we're not alone. Christ is with us. He's supporting us, he's loving us, and he's giving us that hope that he will be victorious in the end, and that we can hold on to that. We don't need to give in to despair or anything like that. We know that new life is coming again.
Right, because he's with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me in this, and we wish all of you a blessed Holy Week and, of course, a most glorious Easter. God bless you.